It started with a stranger's last wish. No badge, no backup. Just a dying man on a hospital bed whispering, "Promise me you'll deliver this." A letter, a name, and a truth no one wanted to touch. Officer Ryan Hale had spent his whole career following orders. He knew the rules, knew how to keep his hands clean, until the night a stranger bled out in his arms, and made him swear an oath that would destroy everything he believed in. Because when Ryan opened that envelope, he didn't find a confession. He found a list of people who were never supposed to exist. Each name connected to a case he thought was closed. Each one tied to his own department. And when he started asking questions, the same people who once called him brother began calling him liability. It should have been simple. Deliver the letter, honor the man's last wish. But nothing about that wish was simple. It was bait, a setup. And by the time Ryan realized it, his badge didn't mean justice anymore. It meant target. Because the deeper he went, the more he learned that the man who died in his arms wasn't a stranger at all. He was the one person Ryan had been trained to forget. The storm had already begun when Officer Ryan Hale stepped into St. Mary's Hospital. The rain hit the roof like gunfire, and the hallways smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt coffee. His uniform was soaked, his boots left muddy prints on the linoleum. But none of that mattered. Dispatch had called it in as a routine assist. An unidentified male in critical condition requesting to speak with a cop named Hale. Only problem was, Ryan didn't know anyone by that name outside his own badge. He found the nurse near room 306. She looked pale and tired, her scrubs flecked with blood. "You're Officer Hale?" "Yeah," he said. "What's this about?" She lowered her voice. "He doesn't have long. Says he knows you." Ryan frowned. "Name? Didn't give one. Just keep saying it's urgent." She led him down the hall. Machines beeped softly in the dim light. When Ryan stepped inside the room, he froze. The man on the bed was barely conscious. Late 40s, face gaunt, eyes half open. Tubes ran from his arms to a monitor that was beeping too slowly. His lips moved, cracked and dry. "Ryan Hale," he whispered. Ryan's pulse jumped. "Yeah, that's me." "You look just like him." Ryan stepped closer. "Like who?" The man coughed, grimaced, then motioned toward the nightstand. "Letter. Take it. Promise me you'll deliver it." Ryan followed his gaze. A small brown envelope lay there, unmarked except for a single word. Sarah. He hesitated. "Who's Sarah?" The man's breathing hitched. "You'll know when you find her. Please, don't let them bury it again." Ryan reached for the letter, feeling the weight of it before he even touched it. "Bury what?" The man opened his mouth to speak, then gasped, body arching. The monitor screamed flat. Ryan grabbed his wrist. "Hey, stay with me." But it was too late. The nurse rushed in, hit the emergency button, and pushed him aside as the room filled with shouting and motion. Ryan stepped back, heart pounding, the letter still in his hand. Within a minute, the shouting stopped. The nurse looked up and shook her head. Time of death, 11:43 p.m. Ryan stared at the body. He didn't even know the man's name, but he'd made a promise. The precinct was quiet when Ryan returned. He sat at his desk long after midnight, staring at the envelope. Sarah. No address, no sender. No clue. He thought about filing it as evidence. He thought about forgetting it altogether. But something about the man's last words stuck in his head. "You look just like him." Just like who? He looked up the hospital records. The patient had been admitted as John Doe, found unconscious behind a bus depot. No ID, no phone, no wallet. Only thing in his pocket was a key, rusted, with the number 317 etched into the metal. Locker key. Storage, motel. Ryan's gut told him one thing. If he didn't figure this out, nobody would. He drove back out into the rain that morning. He found himself standing in front of a rundown motel on the edge of town, the kind of place where bad stories began and worse ones ended. The neon sign buzzed weakly. Pine Crest Inn. He showed the key to the clerk, an old man with nicotine-stained fingers. "Room 317, Ryan asked. The clerk squinted. Ain't been anyone in there for weeks. You a cop? Ryan flashed his badge. Mind if I take a look? The clerk shrugged. You clean it up if you break anything. The door creaked open. The air inside was stale, heavy with dust and mildew. The curtains were drawn tight. Ryan flicked on his flashlight and swept the beam across the room. Empty bed, empty drawers, a cracked mirror. Then, on the table near the window, he saw it. A half-burned file folder. He opened it carefully. Inside were fragments of old police reports, water-stained and half-torn, and a faded photograph. The photo showed two men standing beside a squad car. One was younger, smiling wide. The other, Ryan froze. The other looked exactly like him. Same face, same build, same crooked grin, but it wasn't him. The badge number on the man's chest read 4195. Ryan's number was 4196. He turned the photo over. A single word was scribbled on the back. Brother. Ryan's stomach twisted. He didn't have a brother, at least not one he'd ever been told about. He set the photo down, hands trembling. Under the folder, something else caught his eye. A small cassette tape labeled Hale Case 1997, internal only. Ryan slipped it into the old tape recorder on the table. The hiss of static filled the room, then a voice, calm, measured, familiar in a way that made his skin crawl. If you're hearing this, then they've already erased me. He turned up the volume. My name is David Hale. Badge 4195. There's something inside the department. Something we covered up years ago. It wasn't supposed to get this far. But if you're listening, you need to know. The fire at Bellevue wasn't an accident. Bellevue. Ryan's chest tightened. That was the case that had ended his father's career. A warehouse fire, 1997. 4 officers dead. Official report said gas leak. His father had never spoken about it again. The tape crackled again. They said we were heroes. But the truth, we were scapegoats. They buried the real story. And if you dig, you'll find the name Callahan. Start there. Trust no one in blue. Not even the badge. The tape clicked off. Ryan sat there in silence. David Hale. His last name. His face. His badge number before his own. It couldn't be coincidence. He took the tape, the photo, and the letter. His head spun. The dead man at the hospital? Was it David? It couldn't be. The age didn't fit. But then again, the department had a habit of making inconvenient people disappear. When he got home, the power was out. The storm had knocked half the grid offline. The house felt too quiet, too dark. He set the envelope on the table and poured a glass of whiskey. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, Sarah. He tore it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a single line written in neat, deliberate handwriting. You're next, Ryan. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. He grabbed his gun, moving to the window. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the streetlights outside. He scanned the shadows, every instinct on fire. No movement, no car. No sound, but when he turned back toward the table, the letter was gone. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, he was at the precinct early, scanning the old case archives. The Bellevue file had been sealed, marked Confidential, Internal Oversight Only. He logged in under his credentials. Access denied. He tried the lieutenant's code. Denied again. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number, he answered. Hale, a pause. Then a low, raspy voice. You should have left it buried. Who is this? You're looking for answers you don't want to find. Tell me about Bellevue. Silence. Then, ask your father. The line went dead. Ryan sat frozen, the phone still in his hand. His father had been retired for over 20 years, living quietly in a cabin 2 hours north. They hadn't spoken in months. He packed a bag and drove. The road to his father's cabin wound through dense pine and wet fog. When he pulled up, the front porch light was already on. His father, Samuel Hale, opened the door before Ryan could knock. I figured you'd come sooner or later, the old man said, stepping aside. You found the tape. Ryan stared at him. You knew. Samuel nodded, poured 2 coffees. I was there that night. The Bellevue fire? His father nodded again, eyes distant. David wasn't just your brother. He was my son from before I met your mother. I kept him a secret to protect you both. Ryan's breath caught. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I thought he was dead. Ryan slammed the tape on the table. Then who was the man at the hospital? Samuel looked down at the photo, the letter, the key. His hands shook. The past doesn't die, Ryan. It waits. Dad, what happened that night? Samuel's jaw tightened. They burned it to hide what they were doing. Illegal transfers. Off-book deals. David found out. He tried to expose them. And you? I covered it up, Samuel whispered. To save what was left of this family. Ryan's voice rose. You let him die. I thought I was saving you. Lightning flashed outside. Thunder rolled over the cabin. Then, from outside, the crunch of tires on gravel. Ryan turned toward the window. Headlights cut through the trees. 2 cars pulling up slow. Samuel's face went pale. They found us. Ryan grabbed his father's old shotgun from the mantel and ducked as bullets shattered the windows. Go. Samuel shouted. Through the back. Ryan fired back blindly, dragging his father toward the door. They stumbled into the rain, heading toward the woods. Another shot cracked. Samuel fell. Dad! He dropped beside him, pressing his hands against the wound. Blood seeped through his fingers. Samuel's eyes fluttered. Don't. Stop. Dad! Find Sarah, he whispered. She's the key. Then he went still. Ryan looked up, headlights cutting through the rain again, closer this time. He ran. He didn't stop until dawn. His uniform was torn, his side bruised, his gun empty. He hid behind an old service station, breathing hard. He checked his pocket, the photo, the tape, the letter, all still there. Sarah, whoever she was the last piece left. He made himself a promise as the sun rose over the drenched highway. He'd find her. He'd finish what David started, even if it cost him everything. And as he looked down at the badge clipped to his vest, dented, cracked, glinting faintly in the morning light, he realized it already had. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Ryan drove until the wipers could barely keep up, the rhythm of the storm blurring into the hum of the engine. His father's last words echoed in his head. Find Sarah. She's the key. He didn't know where to start. The envelope hadn't listed an address, and Sarah wasn't much to go on. But one name in the tape had stood out. Callahan. If he could find Callahan, maybe he could find Sarah. He pulled into a gas station outside the city limits, the kind of place that felt forgotten by time. The clerk, an older woman, barely looked up from her magazine. Hey, Ryan said, sliding a crumpled photo across the counter, the one of David beside the squad car. You recognize this guy? She squinted. Looks like one of the Hales. Used to have a cop come through here years back, always talking about his brother. Why? Ryan hesitated. Just trying to find someone he knew, a woman named Sarah. The woman frowned, tapping her chin. Sarah Callahan? Ryan's pulse spiked. Yeah, that's her. She used to run a bar up near Bellevue, the Red Lantern. Been closed for years, though. I heard she took off after the fire. The Bellevue fire, Ryan muttered. Of course, he thanked her, grabbed his keys, and drove toward Bellevue. The Red Lantern sat at the edge of town, boarded-up windows and a rusted sign half hanging from its bolts, the letters barely visible beneath the grime. Ryan parked across the street and watched for a moment. No lights, no movement, just the whisper of wind through broken glass. He crossed the street, pried open the side door, and stepped inside. The bar was a ghost. Dust hung in the air like fog, and old bottles lined the shelves, labels faded. A single table sat upright, a coffee cup still resting on it, fossilized in time. He ran his flashlight across the wall and froze. Photos, dozens of them, pinned in rows, curling at the edges. All of officers. Some he recognized, some he didn't, and in the center, David Hale. Beneath his photo, a note. They lied, Ryan's breath caught. Behind him, a voice. I was wondering when you'd show up. He spun around, gun raised. A woman stood in the doorway. Late 40s, dark hair streaked with gray, wearing a leather jacket and calm eyes that had seen too much. Sarah Callahan? He asked. She didn't flinch. You look just like him. David? She nodded. He said you'd come. Ryan lowered the gun slowly. He's dead. I know, she said quietly. But he didn't die for nothing. Come on, you're not safe here. They sat in the back room, a small office lit by a single hanging bulb. Sarah poured 2 cups of black coffee and slid one to him. You shouldn't have come alone, she said. I didn't have a choice. She leaned back, studying him. You think you're the first to go digging into Bellevue? That place is cursed, Ryan. Everyone who touches it ends up buried. Then tell me why my brother was there. She sighed, rubbing her temples. David was working undercover. The department was moving unregistered evidence, drugs, weapons, selling it through contractors. He stumbled into something bigger. The fire wasn't an accident. It was a cleanup. Ryan's throat tightened. And my father? Sarah's gaze hardened. He was ordered to stand down. They used him as a scapegoat when things went bad. He carried that shame to protect you. Ryan clenched his fists. They murdered my brother. Then they killed my father to shut him up. Sarah shook her head. They didn't kill your father, Ryan. Not yet. He froze. What? They hit him, yes. But I heard the call. They said, he's down, not gone. If he's alive, they're keeping him somewhere. You can bet it's off the books. Ryan leaned forward. Where? She slid a folder across the table. Inside were old maps of Bellevue, marked in red. There's an old decommissioned substation under the prison. That's where they took David before the fire. My guess is they've kept it operational. He looked up. How do you know all this? She smiled bitterly. Because I helped build it. I was their fixer once, before I grew a conscience. They left the bar after midnight. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled like rust and secrets. Ryan followed Sarah's car down a narrow back road that led to the old Bellevue compound. The building loomed ahead, massive, fenced, abandoned in name only. She parked under the shadow of a water tower. Security'll be light. 2 guards on the outer gate, 1 patrol inside. They'll be expecting surveillance, not visitors. You've done this before, he said. She smirked. You could say that. They slipped through a hole in the fence and moved along the side wall. Ryan's flashlight caught a faded warning sign. Property of Bellevue Industrial Holdings. Inside, the corridors were damp, lined with pipes and cables. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Sarah stopped at a locked steel door and pulled a small device from her jacket. An old security bypass tool. The lock clicked. After you, she said. Ryan pushed the door open. The room beyond was filled with old filing cabinets and flickering monitors. The hum of electricity buzzed faintly through the floor, and on one of the screens, his father's face. Ryan staggered back. Dad? Video feed showed Samuel Hale sitting in a cell, bruised but alive. A timestamp in the corner read, Live. Sarah whispered, They've got him. Ryan's heart pounded. Where's this feed coming from? She pointed to the corner of the screen. Sublevel C, Sector 9. He turned to her. We need to get him out. She hesitated. If we go down there, we're not coming back. He met her gaze. Then we make it count. They moved fast, down 2 levels of rusted stairwells and through a tunnel lined with flickering bulbs. Water dripped from overhead. The hum of distant machinery echoed. At the end of the hall was another reinforced door. Sarah knelt beside the keypad, typing quickly. Give me 10 seconds. A voice rang out behind them. Don't bother. Ryan spun, gun raised. A man stepped. From the shadows, tall, built like stone, wearing an officer's coat. The nameplate read Callahan. "Funny," Ryan said. "I was looking for you." Callahan smiled thinly. "I know. Your brother was just as stubborn." "You killed him." "Correction," Callahan said. "I obeyed orders." Ryan's finger tightened on the trigger. "Whose orders?" "Same as yours once were. The badge doesn't make you clean, Hale. It just tells you who you belong to." Sarah stepped forward. "You're working for the commissioner." Callahan nodded. "Always have. And now that the truth's leaking, I'm here to stop it." He reached for his holster, but Sarah was faster. 2 shots rang out. Callahan dropped. Ryan's ears rang. The door clicked open. They ran inside. The sublevel was lined with cells, dark, cold, each one holding shadows. At the far end, Ryan saw him. "Dad!" Samuel looked up weakly as Ryan rushed to unlock the gate. "You shouldn't have come." Ryan's voice broke. "I couldn't leave you." Sarah watched the hallway, gun raised. "We need to move. Now." They made it halfway back before the alarms began. Red lights flashed. The sound of boots echoed. Sarah shoved Ryan forward. "Go!" He turned to see her fire down the corridor, covering their retreat. "Sarah!" he shouted. "Get him out!" she yelled. "I'll find another way." He hesitated, but his father's weight pulled him forward. They burst through the outer doors as floodlights ignited across the yard. Ryan threw his father into the passenger seat and gunned the engine. Behind them, the facility burned. They didn't stop until they reached the outskirts of town. Ryan pulled into an empty parking lot, chest heaving. His father slumped against the window, pale but breathing. "Dad, we're safe," he said, voice shaking. Samuel looked at him, eyes heavy with guilt. "You shouldn't have trusted her." Ryan froze. "What are you talking about?" Samuel coughed. "Sarah. She worked for them. She wasn't helping you, she was finishing the job." Ryan's pulse spiked. "No, she saved us." "Did she?" his father said weakly. "Why do you think they let you leave? Because that fire wasn't for them, son. It was for you." Ryan turned toward the horizon and saw the column of smoke rising from Bellevue. The entire facility had gone up in flames, just like 1997. Hours later, as dawn broke, he stood by the edge of a ridge overlooking the fire. Emergency lights flickered below. Black smoke curled into the clouds. He held the cassette tape in one hand, the photo in the other. If his father was right, Sarah had played him, used him to clean up the last of the evidence. But then, why save him at all? He heard movement behind him. "Still standing," said a familiar voice. He turned. Sarah stepped out from the trees, jacket torn, face streaked with ash. "I told you it would burn," she said softly. "You lied to me," he snapped. She sighed. "Not about everything. The people who took your brother, who tried to kill your father, they were part of something bigger. I couldn't stop it alone." "So you made me the bait?" "I made you the witness," she said. "They'll believe you, Ryan. You're still wearing the badge." He looked down at his uniform. Soaked, burned, bloodied. The badge hung half-broken, the number barely visible. "Not for long," he said. She smiled sadly. "Then make it count while you can." A helicopter's spotlight swept across the ridge. Sarah stepped back into the shadows. Ryan shouted, "Where are you going?" She paused. "To finish what your brother started. Don't let them make you choose between truth and loyalty." Then she was gone. He watched the fire burn until the sun rose behind it, painting the smoke gold. His radio crackled. The chief's voice calling his name, demanding answers. Ryan switched it off. He wasn't reporting in. Not this time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge. The metal was hot to the touch, the engraving almost melted. He looked at it one last time, then threw it into the flames. The badge hissed, vanished, and for the first time in his life, Ryan Hale felt free. But freedom came with a cost, and he could feel it already chasing him. because someone, somewhere, was still cleaning house. And the next name on their list was his. The next morning, Ryan Hale was a ghost. His name had been wiped from the precinct roster. His ID flagged as inactive. And every call to his fellow officers went straight to voicemail. The system he'd served for 15 years had cut him off overnight. He sat in a diner off Highway 11, the kind of place where the coffee was bad and the silence was worse. His reflection in the window didn't look like a cop anymore, just a man hollowed out by truth. On the counter beside his plate sat the photo of his brother and the tape recorder. The waitress gave him a nervous glance. "You sure you're okay, honey?" Ryan managed a nod. "Just tired of being lied to." He left a 20 under the cup and stepped out into the mist. Across the parking lot, an old black sedan idled, engine humming. Ryan noticed the glint of a lens behind the tinted glass. He slipped his hand inside his jacket. No badge, but his weapon still felt like a familiar weight. He took a step toward the car. The driver's window rolled down. "Officer Hale," the man inside said smoothly. Or, should I say, former officer. Ryan recognized the voice before he saw the face. Deputy Commissioner Renard Hale. No relation by blood, but every cop in the state knew the name. The man who had turned corruption into policy. "Commissioner," Ryan said, "you don't usually get your hands dirty." Renard smiled. "Sometimes I like to meet my problems before I erase them." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You sent Callahan. You tried to kill my father." Renard shrugged. "Loose ends. The truth has a nasty habit of surviving, you know? But it's nothing personal." "It is, to me." Renard's smile faded. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. You could have taken the package, gone home, and forgotten all of it. But you made promises to the wrong people." "Sarah Callahan," Ryan said. "You know where she is?" Renard's eyes flickered. A tiny tell. "She's not your concern anymore." Ryan stepped closer. "She burned Bellevue to the ground. You think she's not my concern?" Renard leaned out the window, voice lowering. "You're a liability, Hale, and liabilities don't retire. They vanish." Ryan's hand went to his gun, but before he could draw, Renard tossed something out the window. "A phone. It'll ring at midnight," Renard said. "If you want answers, real ones, you'll answer it. If you don't, the next time we talk, it won't be conversation." The car rolled away, tires hissing through the rain. Ryan stood. In the empty parking lot, the phone in his hand feeling heavier than his sidearm. He checked into a cheap motel under a fake name. The hours crawled by. Every instinct told him to run, but the promise, the one he'd made to a dying man, kept him there. At midnight sharp, the phone rang. He hesitated, then answered. "Ryan Hale," said the voice on the other end. It was female, calm, deliberate. "Sarah," he said, "you shouldn't have confronted Renard." "You mean the man who had my brother killed?" "He's not the only one," she said. "The list is longer than you think. Renard's just the face of it. There's someone higher." "Then tell me who." Silence. Then, "Meet me tomorrow. Old train yard, mile marker 23. Bring the tape." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm the only one who can prove your brother's still alive." The line went dead. Ryan froze. The words echoed in his skull. "Your brother's still alive." He drove through the night, adrenaline replacing exhaustion. The rain followed him like a curse. By the time he reached the train yard, dawn was breaking, a weak gray light over rusted metal and old graffiti. Sarah was waiting near an abandoned boxcar, wearing the same jacket, her face pale and worn. "You came," she said. "You said he's alive." She nodded. "Not alive like you think. But not dead either." Ryan's hand tightened on the recorder. "Start talking." She motioned for him to follow. Inside, the boxcar smelled of oil and rot. Sarah climbed up and pulled a tarp aside. Underneath sat a stack of old military files and hard drives. After Bellevue burned, she said, Renard transferred everyone involved in the operation into a new project, something called Orion. Officially, it doesn't exist, but your brother, David, was one of their first subjects. Subjects? They called it rehabilitation. In reality, it was erasure, identity reprogramming for officers who knew too much. Ryan felt his chest tighten. You're saying they wiped him, she said softly. Erased his records, gave him a new name, a new history. He's still alive, Ryan, but he doesn't remember who he is. Ryan stared at her. Where is he? She hesitated. That's the part you're not going to like. They drove for hours through the outskirts, into the industrial dead zones where factories rusted beside forgotten highways. Sarah's car finally stopped at a facility hidden behind high concrete walls and a faded sign, Orion Security Solutions. Ryan's heart hammered. You're telling me this is government? Private sector now, she said. They bought the silence, rebranded the crime. She parked in the shadows. The one you're looking for, his new file name is Agent Ross. He's in charge of internal enforcement. Ryan stared at her. He's hunting people like us? She nodded slowly. He doesn't know who you are. To him, you're a fugitive. If he sees you, he'll shoot. He looked at the gate, his reflection distorted in the glass. Then I'll have to make him remember. Sarah handed him a badge. Old, scorched, the numbers almost unreadable. Yours, she said. He used to keep it. Ryan's throat tightened. Why are you helping me? She looked away. Because once, a hail saved my life. This is me repaying it. They broke in through the back fence under cover of darkness. The facility was alive. Guards patrolling, lights flickering through fog. Sarah moved like she'd done it before, leading Ryan through corridors that smelled of metal and disinfectant. They stopped outside a glass-walled office. Inside, a man in uniform sat at a desk, reviewing files on a screen. Ryan's heart nearly stopped. It was him, David Hale. Older, cold. His once kind eyes now sharp, distant, mechanical. David, Ryan whispered. Sarah touched his shoulder. Careful. Ryan ignored her. He stepped into the room. David looked up instantly, hand going to his holster. Identify yourself. It's me, Ryan said. Your brother. David's gaze didn't waver. I don't have a brother. Ryan took a step closer, holding out the badge Sarah had given him. You carried this once. David's eyes flickered, something breaking through for a second. Recognition, maybe pain. Then it was gone. He raised the gun. You shouldn't be here, Ryan's voice cracked. You don't remember what they did to us. The fire, Bellevue. David's jaw tightened. Bellevue was a training exercise, classified. Then why did our father die trying to expose it? That word, father, made David hesitate. His arm trembled. Ryan pressed forward. They lied to you, David. They made you forget. Listen to the tape. He set the recorder on the desk and hit play. The voice of the younger David filled the room. If you're hearing this, they erased me. David's expression faltered. His breathing quickened. His gun lowered. Then the alarms blared. Red lights flashed through the hall. Sarah cursed. They know we're here. David staggered back, gripping his head. Get out, now! Not without you, Ryan shouted. But before he could reach him, guards burst in. Gunfire erupted. Sarah returned fire, shoving Ryan toward the door. Go, she yelled. He's not ready. Ryan fired twice, dropping a guard, then dragged Sarah down a side corridor. Behind them, the sound of the recorder still played, David's voice echoing through the chaos. Trust no one in blue. They escaped through a drainage tunnel, emerging into the freezing night. Sarah clutched her side, blood seeping through her jacket. Sarah, she winced but waved him off. Just a graze. Ryan tore his sleeve and pressed it against the wound. He hesitated, Sarah. He remembered something. She smiled weakly. Then, there's still hope. He looked back at the facility lights glowing faintly in the distance. They'll hunt us now. They already were, she said, but now they're afraid. By dawn, they reached an abandoned farmhouse on the edge of the woods. Sarah collapsed onto a couch, breathing heavily. Ryan built a fire, his hands shaking. He couldn't stop replaying the moment, his brother's face, that flicker of recognition before the alarms. He sat across from her. We need proof, something that ties Renard to Orion. Sarah nodded slowly. There's a data core, top floor of the facility. It has everything, the names, the orders, the funding. But you won't get in without an access code. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. This will open the server room, but there's one problem. Let me guess, Ryan said. It's in David's possession. He sighed. Then I'll go back. You'll die if you do, she warned. He met her eyes. Maybe, but I'm done running. That night, as the wind howled outside, Ryan couldn't sleep. The fire had burned down to embers. Sarah slept restlessly on the couch. He took out his father's old watch and wound it, the ticking steady and small, the only sound left. He whispered to the darkness, I made a promise. I won't break it. He didn't notice Sarah open her eyes, watching him silently, her expression unreadable. The next day, Ryan returned to Orion alone. He moved like a shadow through the back corridors, every footstep deliberate. He reached the office where he'd last seen his brother. Empty now. The desk had been cleared. Only a single note lay there, handwritten in familiar block letters. If you come back, I'll remember. Ryan stared at it. Then he heard the click of a gun behind him. David. I told you to stay away, his brother said. You left this for me, Ryan replied. I needed to see if you'd come back. Ryan turned slowly. Do you remember? David's eyes were conflicted, pain and recognition warring behind them. Pieces, fragments, faces they told me to forget. They took your life, David. They made you part of their machine. David looked down. And if I walk away, what am I? A ghost? Ryan stepped closer. You're my brother. For a moment, silence. Then David lowered his gun. But before Ryan could breathe, a shot cracked from the doorway. Sarah stood there pale and shaking, gun smoking. David fell. Ryan screamed, catching him as he collapsed. Why? Sarah's voice broke. Because he was the failsafe. If he remembered everything, Orion would send a kill order for us both. I had to stop it. Ryan stared at her, rage boiling behind his eyes. You used me. Tears streamed down her face. No, I saved you. He cradled David's body, blood pooling on the floor. His brother's hand twitched, gripping Ryan's sleeve weakly. Finish it, David whispered. Then he was gone. Ryan stood, shaking, covered in blood. Sarah backed away, gun trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. He looked at her, and in that moment, everything inside him broke. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't need to. The truth was its own bullet now. He turned and walked away, leaving her in the silence she'd created. Hours later, the news broke. A classified fire at Orion Security Solutions. Multiple casualties. No suspects. But hidden within the chaos was a leak. Files, documents, audio, everything Sarah had promised. The truth was out, and with it, the name of every officer, commissioner, and corporation involved. Renard Hale resigned that night. Sarah disappeared, and Ryan Hale, once Officer 4196, was branded a traitor. But as he stood on the edge of the city, watching the skyline burn with the light of exposure, he didn't care, because his brother's name was clean again. The promise had been kept. The city didn't sleep anymore. Every screen, every headline, every whisper on the street carried the same name. Orion. Files had leaked in waves. Corruption, cover-ups, disappearances. Officers were being arrested, politicians questioned. What was once rumor had become proof. And somewhere in that storm of truth, Ryan Hale had vanished. He wasn't a cop now. Not even a fugitive. Just a man with a target on his back and nothing left to lose, but the list, the one buried inside Orion's files, still haunted him. He'd read it 100 times. 50 names. Agents, officers, contractors. All tied to Bellevue. All complicit. 49 were accounted for. Only one name remained unmarked. R. Hale. Not Renard. Not Ryan. Not David. Someone else. He didn't understand. But whoever this R. Hale was, they had erased everything to keep their identity hidden, and that meant they were still alive. He rented a warehouse on the edge of the docks, quiet and gray. The air smelled of salt and oil. It became his war room. Pinned across the walls were photos, documents, maps of Bellevue, printouts of Orion files. In the center, the list. Names crossed out one by one. At the bottom, R. Hale, unknown. He stared at it for hours until his eyes burned. Finally, he threw a wrench across the room. "Who the hell are you?" The only answer was the hum of the distant harbor. At dawn, he heard footsteps outside. He grabbed his gun, crouched by the door. A knock. Soft. Steady. Then a voice. "Ryan, it's me. Sarah." He hesitated, then opened the door. She stood there, pale and exhausted, dressed in civilian clothes. No gun, no mask. Just the same haunted look he'd seen in the bar. "You've got some nerve showing up," he said. "I didn't have a choice. You had a choice when you shot my brother." Her voice broke. "He gave me one too. To save you," Ryan turned away. "You can leave now." "Not until you hear this." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket and set it on the table. This came from the backup server at Orion. It's encrypted, but the title line isn't. It says Project Redline, authorized by R. Hale. Ryan froze. "You've got to be kidding me." She shook her head. "Whoever they are, they started everything. Bellevue, Orion, even Renard took orders from them." Ryan stared at the drive. "So this was never about my brother?" "No," she said softly. "It was about you." They set up an old laptop and ran the decryption software. The files were heavily coded. Layers of redacted text, scrambled audio logs, digital footprints wiped clean. But one fragment remained, a voice recording. Ryan pressed play. Project Redline. Phase initiation complete. Operatives in place. Objective: rebuild from within. Should the cover collapse, activate Hale Protocol. Then another voice, faint, distorted. "You understand what this means, right? If this fails, there'll be no going back." The first voice replied, "It won't fail." I made sure of that. The distortion cracked. Static faded, and Ryan heard his own voice. He dropped the laptop. Sarah looked at him, eyes wide. "That's you." Ryan shook his head. "No, it can't be." "That's not. It's you," she repeated. "They used you." He backed away, heart hammering. "I don't remember this. I never recorded that." Sarah pulled up another file. This one was labeled Recruitment Footage, Bellevue, 1996. The video showed a younger Ryan in uniform sitting across from a recruiter. "Officer Hale," the man said on screen. "Do you understand what Orion is asking of you?" Ryan on the tape smiled slightly. "A clean slate. That's what you promised. You'll be part of something bigger than any one badge. You'll save lives, but no one will ever know your name again. You'll be the line they can't cross." Ryan nodded. "Then I'll be the one who draws it." The video ended. The silence that followed was unbearable. Ryan's voice came out in a whisper. "I don't remember this." Sarah stared at him horrified. "You weren't just a cop, Ryan. You were one of them." He stumbled back, collapsing into a chair. His whole life, the badge, the oath, the guilt, suddenly felt like someone else's story. "What did they do to me?" he muttered. Sarah said quietly, "They rewrote you, just like your brother." He sat in the dark for a long time after that. Every memory felt corrupted now. Every choice, every moment that had defined him. If he'd been part of Orion, if he had authorized Redline, then all of it, David's death, Bellevue, the erasures, had started because of him. He whispered, I killed my own brother." Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for him. "You didn't know." He pulled away. "It doesn't matter. It's still on me." By nightfall, he made his decision. He printed the files, every last page, and sealed them in a weatherproof box. Sarah watched silently. "What are you doing?" "I'm finishing it," he said. "The truth doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone who died because of me. You'll be hunted for this." "I already am." He looked up at her. "Help me get it to the press." She nodded once. "Then we burn the rest." They drove back into the city, headlights cutting through fog. The streets were eerily quiet. Curfews had been enforced after the leaks. Everyone was on edge. Ryan parked near a courier office. "You make the drop," he said. "They'll recognize me." Sarah hesitated. "You trust me?" He met her eyes. "Not completely, but I trust what we've lost." She took the box and disappeared into the alley. Ryan waited, engine idling, watching the clock on the dashboard. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then the passenger door opened, but it wasn't Sarah. Renard Hale slid into the seat. "Evening, officer," he said calmly. Ryan's hand went to his gun, but Renard held up his phone. "You really think she could walk into a drop zone without me knowing?" "She's been feeding me since the beginning." Ryan's blood ran cold. "You're lying," Renard smirked. "Check your rearview mirror." Ryan looked. Sarah stood in the alley, hands up, surrounded by armed men. Renard leaned closer. "You made this personal, Hale, but it's just business. You were Orion's greatest success. A man so loyal he didn't even know he was working for both sides." Ryan's voice was low, dangerous. "You erased my life." "I gave you purpose," Renard said. "You just forgot the mission." Ryan's hand tightened on the wheel. "Then remind me." Renard's smile faded. "Terminate all liabilities." Ryan slammed the car into reverse, throwing Renard against the seat, then floored it forward, crashing through the gate. Bullets ripped through the windshield. He spun the car toward the docks, the rain coming down in sheets. Renard reached for his gun, but Ryan slammed his arm against the window, disarming him. They struggled. The gun went off once, shattering the glass. The car fishtailed and slammed into a cargo crate. Both men tumbled out onto the wet pavement. Renard reached first, grabbing the weapon. Ryan kicked it away, the two of them grappling in the rain. "You were never meant to survive this," Renard hissed. Ryan struck back, fury behind every blow. "Neither were you." Renard pulled a knife, slashing across Ryan's arm. Blood mixed with rain. Ryan caught his wrist, twisted. The blade clattered to the ground. They locked eyes. Renard smiled faintly. "You'll never erase what you are." Ryan drove the knife into the ground beside his head. "No, but I can choose what I become." He stood, breathing hard, rain streaming down his face. Renard didn't move. Ryan picked up the fallen phone from the ground. It was still connected to a live feed. Surveillance, audio, everything. He pressed record. "This is Ryan Hale," he said. "Deputy Commissioner Renard Hale is under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, and murder." Renard laughed weakly. "You don't have a badge anymore." Ryan looked down at him. "No, I have the truth." He walked away. Behind him, sirens began to wail. Someone had heard the fight. The city would come, clean it up, twist it however they needed to, but this time the story was already out. The files Sarah dropped had reached every outlet in the country. By morning, Orion was finished, and Ryan Hale, the man they'd built, broken and buried, was gone again. A week later, a small cabin in the mountains. Snow fell softly outside. The world had gone quiet again. Inside, Ryan sat by the fire reading the final article. Whistleblower exposes decades of police corruption. Authorities promise reform. He smiled faintly. "Reform," he muttered. "That's what they always say." A knock on the door. He opened it slowly. Sarah stood there, bundled in a heavy coat, eyes tired but alive. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. She smirked. "So are you." They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. "You leaked everything," she said. Even your name. It was never mine to keep. She nodded, then handed him a small envelope. It came through one of the old channels. I think you should see it. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper stamped with an old insignia, the same one from the Bellevue files. At the bottom, 2 words, Project Restart. He looked up. What is this? Sarah stared into the fire. The last name on the list wasn't a person. It was a command. Ryan's chest tightened. You mean, they're rebuilding, she said. Under a new name. Same people. New faces. Ryan sat back, exhaling slowly. Then it's not over, she smiled sadly. It never is. He looked at the flames, the reflection of his brother's face flickering there for just a second. Or maybe his own. He whispered, Then neither am I. The wind howled outside. The snow kept falling, and somewhere deep beneath the surface of another quiet city, a file marked Restart began to open. End of Chapter 4. Final cliffhanger. The truth burned everything Ryan Hale loved. But corruption doesn't die. It only changes its name. As a new system rises from the ashes, one man prepares to face it again, without a badge, without backup, and without fear. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it hides in the shadows, bleeding, broken, but still breathing. Ryan Hale learned that the hard way. He started as a cop, then became a witness, then a weapon, and finally, something else entirely. He lost his father, his brother, his name, everything the system told him to protect. But in the end, he kept his promise. He delivered the truth, even when it burned him alive. Now, the world thinks Orion is gone. The headlines say, Case closed. But behind those closed doors, files are being renamed. People are being moved, and somewhere, in a room full of screens, another list is being written. And on that list, at the very bottom, is one name, Ryan Hale. Because the system doesn't forget its ghosts. It hunts them. The next story begins there, with a man who's already lost everything, and still has something left to fight for. If you thought this story was wild, wait until you hear what happens next. It starts with a new city, a new badge, and a mysterious message that reads, Welcome back, Officer Hale. We've been expecting you. Grab my free storytelling guide below. I'll show you exactly how to build tension, character arcs, and cliffhangers that make people binge your stories. You'll want it before the next video drops. Because the next story, it's not about justice. It's about what happens when justice stops waiting for permission.